In August of 1492, 3 small ships left a little Spanish port and sailed west into an empty ocean. Just over 2 months later, their captain stepped onto a beach that no European knew existed, and the entire course of human history bent around that single moment. His name was Christopher Columbus, and almost everything you think you know about him is wrong. He did not set out to prove the Earth was round. Educated Europeans had known that for nearly 2,000 years. He was not a lone genius proven right by his peers. On the central question, the experts told him he was wrong, and the experts were correct. And here is the strangest part of all. Christopher Columbus went to his grave, after 4 voyages across the ocean, still convinced he had reached Asia. He never knew he had stumbled into a new world. This is the story of the greatest accident in history. Let's get into it. To understand Columbus, you have to understand the problem everyone was trying to solve. As we saw last time, Europe was desperate for a sea route to the riches of the East. The spices, the silk, and the gold of Asia. Portugal was attacking that problem by creeping south and east around Africa. Columbus had a different, breathtaking idea. Don't go around the world. Go straight across it. Sail west across the open Atlantic and you'll come out on the other side in Asia. In theory, that is completely correct. The Earth is round. Sail west far enough and you will reach the east. The disagreement was never about the shape of the world. It was about its size. And on that question, Columbus was badly, almost fatally, wrong. Scholars going back to the ancient Greeks had measured the Earth and come remarkably close to the true figure. Columbus threw those numbers out. He cherry-picked the smallest estimates of the globe and the largest guesses about how far Asia stretched eastward, and convinced himself that Japan lay maybe 2,400 miles west of Europe. The real distance that way is more than 4 times as far, with 2 enormous continents and the widest ocean on Earth sitting in between. The experts who turned him down were not closed-minded fools. They did the math, and the math said that any ship attempting it would run out of food and water and die in the middle of an endless ocean, long before reaching Asia. They were right. If 2 unknown continents had not happened to be in the way, Columbus and his crew would have sailed off to a slow death. He was saved by a mistake the size of 2 hemispheres. So who was this man, betting everyone's life on bad arithmetic? Christopher Columbus was a weaver's son from Genoa, in Italy, largely self-taught, who had spent years at sea. He was ambitious to the point of obsession, deeply religious, and utterly, immovably certain that he was right. For the better part of a decade, he carried his plan from court to court like a traveling salesman, and the door kept getting shut in his face. Portugal said no. Their own experts correctly judged that his distances were a fantasy. Spain kept him waiting for years, studying his proposal, putting him off. Columbus was on the verge of giving up and trying France when, in 1492, everything suddenly changed. That year, Spain finished a war that had lasted for centuries. The fall of Granada in January of 1492 completed the long Christian campaign to take the Iberian Peninsula back from its Muslim rulers. The monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, were suddenly victorious, ambitious, and hungry for the next great Catholic enterprise. Flush with that victory, they decided Columbus's gamble was worth the relatively small cost of 3 ships. It's worth remembering that 1492 was a dark year in Spain in another way too. The same triumphant monarchs ordered the expulsion of every Jew who would not convert. Columbus, for his part, drove a staggering bargain. If he succeeded, he demanded to be made admiral of the ocean sea, governor of any lands he found, and to keep 1/10 of all the riches that flowed from them, forever, for himself and his heirs. The crown, expecting very little, agreed. They had no idea what they had just signed away. On the 3rd of August, 1492, Columbus set sail from the port of Palos with 3 ships. 2 were nimble little caravels, the Nina and the Pinta. The largest, his flagship, was a slower vessel called the Santa Maria. Around 90 men in all. They stopped in the Canary Islands to repair and resupply, and then, in early September, they pointed their bows west and sailed off the edge of every map they had. What followed was over a month on the open Atlantic, out of sight of land. Columbus got lucky in a way he didn't fully understand. He had stumbled into the trade winds, steady breezes that pushed the ships west day after day. But that same good fortune frightened the crew. If the wind always blew west, how would they ever get home again? The days dragged on. They sailed through the Sargasso Sea, a strange stretch of ocean thick with floating weed that made sailors fear they would run aground in the middle of nowhere. They saw birds and clouds and convinced themselves land was near. Again and again, and again and again, the horizon stayed stubbornly empty. Columbus, worried about morale, is said to have kept 2 logs, one with the true distance sailed, and a second, falsified one showing a shorter distance, to keep the crew from panicking at how far from home they really were. By early October, the panic was setting in anyway. The men had been at sea far longer than they'd been promised, with no land in sight, and they were on the edge of mutiny, muttering about turning the ships around by force. Columbus struck a bargain. "Give me a few more days. If we don't find land, we'll turn back." They found it. In the small hours of the 12th of October, 1492, a lookout on the Pinta saw a pale line of cliffs in the moonlight and shouted the word everyone had been desperate to hear: land. At dawn, Columbus went ashore on a small island in the Bahamas, planted the banners of Spain, and claimed it for his king and queen. He named it San Salvador. And there, on that beach, 2 halves of the human race met for the first time in roughly 15,000 years. The island was home to the Taino people, who came down to the shore curious and unafraid, bringing gifts of food, cotton, and small ornaments. Columbus described them in his journal as gentle, generous, and handsome. He marveled that they carried no weapons and freely offered everything they had. And then, in almost the same breath, he wrote the lines that would cast a shadow over everything that came after. These people, he noted, were so trusting and so innocent that they would make fine servants. With 50 men, he wrote, we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we wanted. On the first day, in his first written impression, the whole future was already there in black and white. Columbus was certain he had reached the outskirts of Asia, the islands off the coast of China and Japan. So he sailed on, exploring Cuba, which he insisted was the Asian mainland, and a larger island he named Hispaniola, today shared by Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Everywhere he went he asked the same urgent question, by signs and gestures: where is the gold? The Taino, eager to please, and perhaps eager to send these strangers somewhere else, kept gesturing to somewhere just over there. Then, on Christmas Eve, disaster. The Santa Maria drifted onto a reef off Hispaniola and was wrecked beyond saving. Columbus chose to read it as a sign from God that he should build a settlement on the spot. His men salvaged the timbers of the broken flagship and put up a small fort, which he named La Navidad. He left around 39 men behind to gather gold, and with his 2 remaining ships, set out for home to deliver the news. The voyage back was brutal. A savage storm nearly sank them, and Columbus, terrified the story would die with him, scribbled an account, sealed it in a barrel, and threw it into the sea. They survived, but got blown into a port in Portugal first, an awkward meeting with the rival king who had once turned him away. Finally, in March of 1493, he returned in triumph to Spain. And he was a sensation. He paraded into the royal court with parrots, golden trinkets, and several captured Taino men, living proof of strange new lands across the ocean. Ferdinand and Isabella confirmed all his grand titles. Columbus, the man who'd been laughed out of half the courts of Europe, was now Admiral of the Ocean Sea, the most celebrated man in the Christian world. But the triumph curdled fast. And this is where the story turns genuinely dark, and we are not going to look away from it. The second voyage, later in 1493, was nothing like the first. This time Columbus came back with a fleet of 17 ships and over 1,000 men, not to explore but to occupy. When they reached La Navidad, they found the fort burned to the ground and every single man dead. In Columbus's absence, The garrison had terrorized the local people, seizing gold and women, and the Taino had finally struck back and wiped them out. What came next was a system of organized cruelty. Hungry for the gold he had promised the crown, Columbus imposed a tribute on the Taino. Every adult had to deliver a set amount of gold every few months. Those who couldn't, and there was nowhere near enough gold to be found, were savagely punished, some by having their hands cut off. He shipped hundreds of enslaved Taino back across the Atlantic to be sold in Europe. He presided over a regime of forced labor that worked people to death in a desperate hunt for treasure that mostly wasn't there. The result was one of the worst human catastrophes ever recorded. Between violence, starvation, enslavement, and above all the diseases the Europeans carried, against which the people of the Americas had no immunity, the Taino of Hispaniola simply collapsed. A people who may have numbered in the hundreds of thousands were, within a few decades, almost entirely gone. It was the opening chapter of a demographic catastrophe that would, over the next century, sweep across 2 whole continents. Columbus himself was, by nearly every account, a disastrous ruler, brutal and resented even by his fellow Spaniards. The colony fell into rebellion and chaos. Eventually, the crown sent an official to investigate, and what he found was so damning that, in the year 1500, Christopher Columbus, Admiral of the Ocean Sea, was arrested in the very lands he governed and shipped back to Spain in chains. He was released and even allowed one last voyage, but his glory days were finished. His titles were stripped of their real power, and through all of it, across 4 separate crossings of the ocean, he never once admitted the truth that was staring everyone in the face. To the end, he clung to the belief that these islands were the Indies, the doorstep of Asia. That is why, to this day, those islands are called the West Indies, and why the indigenous peoples of 2 entire continents were, through one man's stubborn error, called Indians. Columbus died in 1506, wealthy but bitter. Still feeling cheated of the riches and honors he believed he was owed, and still wrong about where he had been. The 2 new continents he had reached would not even carry his name. They were named America after another Italian navigator, Amerigo Vespucci, who grasped the thing Columbus never could, that this was not Asia at all, but a new world, completely unknown to the old one. So how do we weigh a man like this? It's tempting to make him purely a hero or purely a villain, but the honest answer is harder than either. Columbus was wrong about his geography, cruel in his rule, and personally responsible for immense suffering. He was also a sailor of real daring who, through a colossal mistake, changed the world more than almost any voyage before or since. Because that beach on San Salvador was the moment 2 worlds that had grown apart for 15,000 years were suddenly and permanently joined. Historians call what followed the Columbian Exchange. Out of the Americas flowed foods that would remake the entire planet's diet. The potato, maize, the tomato, chocolate. Into the Americas came horses, wheat, cattle, and the tools of the old world. And carried along with all of it came the deadliest cargo of all, the diseases that would kill millions, and the machinery of conquest and slavery that would shape the centuries to come. The world before 1492 was, in a real sense, 2 separate worlds. The world after it was one. That is Columbus's true legacy. An accident of staggering proportions, a wonder and a tragedy bound together, carried across the ocean on 3 little ships by a man who never even understood what he had found. And that's the part that still gets me. Columbus died insisting he had sailed west to Asia. He never did. He never reached the Indies, never saw the spice ports of the East he had staked his whole life on. The dream of sailing west all the way around the world, to the riches of the East, was still out there, unclaimed. Until one man set out to finish it, to sail west and simply never turn around, through unknown oceans all the way around the entire planet, on the most punishing voyage any of these explorers would ever attempt. Next time, we sail with Ferdinand Magellan on the first journey around the world. If you enjoyed this, subscribe and I'll see you there.